Yeah, hello everybody, it's Turiki Delamere again. I'm here in my Wellington office. I've got Mr Jitain here. He's the proprietor owner of Cairns Motors here in Wellington. And Mr Prasad is his automotive electrician. Now the reason we're talking is Mr Prasad was a few days ago served a deportation liability notice by Immigration New Zealand. But I'm going to interview both of them and let's find out what's going on. So, Mr Jitain, look, thanks for agreeing to have a chat. You know, as I understand, Mr Prasad worked for you for a couple of years, is that correct?
Yes, he did, yes, for a couple of years, yes, true.
And Mr Prasad applied for an extension of the work visa, and he was given approval to be an automotive electrician working for Cairns Motors.
Correct.
Okay, same as before.
Correct.
And I've seen the letter and that's what happened, but some of the events that they've told me is some a bit strange. So I understand before you got your approval, an immigration officer, Mr Kurt Williams, came to the shop. And was that after you put in your application?
Before the time?
No. After the application, had you put the application in already?
Already,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But what hadn't been approved?
It wasn't been
Okay,
approved.
so as I
In
understand
process.
it was in processing, and when Mr Williams came to see you at the shop, what happened? What did he say?
He just came in.
Can you speak up? Come forward.
He just walked in the workshop,
Yeah.
and I was checking the tire with boss, and he just asked me what you are doing on the car. You are an automotive electrician. Why you checking the tire? And I just told him that I'm helping boss. He told me to just help me to check the wheel plate. And after that, he started asking me what job you did in the morning. And after that, he went and talked to boss.
Okay. So when Mr Williams arrived at the shop, at the time you were just doing some checking of a tire.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Mr Williams challenged you, claiming you shouldn't be doing that. Okay. Because you're an automotive electrician. Okay. And what else did he say to you?
And he started asking what job I did in the morning. That's all.
Yeah. So what sort of jobs do you do there?
All electrical also. Starter, alternator, wiring,
Okay. Yep.
alarm
Yeah,
system,
and- okay.
everything.
And before Mr Williams went and talked to Mr Jitain,
Yeah.
what else did Mr Williams tell you?
No, he didn't tell me anything.
He
After that, he
didn't?
just went into.
Oh, okay. He didn't say he could deport you?
Oh, after that, he went in the office and I was outside.
Oh,
And he told me.
Oh, he was talking about Jitain?
Yeah.
Okay.
And after that,
Okay, well, Mr Jitain, so Kurt Williams comes to see you. What does he say?
Well, he said I need some evidence to prove that he is working as an auto electrician, which I have given him on the computer
Yeah.
with receipts and everything.
Yeah.
And then
So these receipts
yes, this
listed
is
what? Auto electrician type jobs.
type jobs.
So starting motor?
Yes, Tata motor and
Wiring.
lights,
Yeah.
and vehicle misfiring, not
Yeah.
running right, and
Yeah.
things like that. And he actually wanted to see the cars which he has worked on that morning, and I showed him that's the car he worked on.
Yeah.
There's a starter motor problem. But basically, what he said that I do starter motors myself, so
Yeah.
you know it's a very basic job.
So Mr Williams, you told me you're working on the starter motor.
Yeah.
But because Mr Williams thinks it's a very basic job, then that's not important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it's my car, it's important.
Yes.
See, because I'm so useless at cars, sometimes I'll put diesel into the petrol thing and wonder why it won't go. I've learned not to do that again. I have done that, I think, twice. But looking at the wheels, yeah, the electrics can be affected by pretty well anything.
It can be, but he was working next. We got two vehicle hoist.
Yep.
I was on the left hand side. He was on the right hand side. Sometimes you need another person to check what's going on under the car. So I just called him over
Yeah, to help.
to help.
Yeah, but what I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But I'm also suggesting that when you have electrical problems in a car, it could be caused by
Yes, IBS sensor, the wheels,
the wheels.
yeah.
Balancing could
Yeah.
cause it, as
That's
I
right,
understand.
yes,
I've
yes.
had my mechanics say, well, the electrical problem there,
Yes.
but it's actually caused by a physical problem.
Yes.
You know, because you're such a muppet, and that's me.
Mhm.
You know, you've got your wheels unbalanced and
Yes.
tyres that got no tread, whatever, and they can affect the performance as well. Okay, so what else did Mr. Williams say to you?
Well, he had a look at a few things, and then he went to him and said, you know, I can deport you right now. And he got a bit like upset and, you know, didn't know what to do.
Yeah, well, I can imagine he'd be upset. So you've worked for a couple of years as an auto electrician.
Yes.
You replied for an extension of that visa, as you do, and then this guy turns up, which can happen. There's not an issue there.
No.
But because you're working at the time assisting your boss with a wheel, he then starts threatening to deport you. And then a week later,
Yes.
the visa's approved.
Yes.
And it has been approved. I've seen it. It's approved through to 2018.
Yes.
Now let's fast forward to December. You had another visit from
Another
Mr.
visit.
What happened there?
He just walked in and I was walking on a car. It was on the hoist,
Okay.
and it was not starting.
Yeah.
So I put on the hoist, so I have to check all the hoist arm is
Yeah,
fully.
Okay, so you're doing auto electrician work.
Yeah.
But what happened? Mr. Williams turned up.
And he started asking me, what you doing under the hoist? I told him that I'm checking the car is not starting, and I put on the hoist. I'm looking at the arm so that it won't like,
Yes.
if it was fitted properly, something like that.
Okay.
And after that he told me that, oh, let's go outside. I want to check with you. And after that he handed me the notice.
So he handed you a. So what we have here, this is the visa that was approved. Okay, it's approved through to 2018. That's back in September. It was approved. Then what they're saying is Mr. Williams turned up with this already completed, and he served that on Mr. Prasad. This is a deportation liability notice. Mr. Prasad now has 14 days from the date it was served, which was the 9th of December.
Yes. Correct.
Good day, 9th December.
No.
I became a beneficiary of the government.
Oh.
I became a superannuitant on that day. So, but we were served on them. Now, one thing about deportation liability notices, it says here, the grounds for this are that you are the holder of a temporary entry class visa, and I have determined that there is sufficient reason to deport you because you have been working outside the conditions of your visa as an automotive electrician. You are therefore liable for deportation under Section 157 of the Immigration Act. Now, Mr. Williams, and it's signed here Kurt Williams, he can only fill that in if he has evidence of Mr. Prasad working outside the conditions of his visa. Now, the conditions of his visa, I'll read it to you. The holder may only work as an automotive electrician for Cairns Motors 2002 in Wellington. Well, he's been working in Wellington. He has been working with Cairns Motors 2002. Mr Jitain is the owner of that business. So the question is, was he or was he not working as an automotive electrician? Now, I don't know much about cars, but Mr Jitain has said Mr Williams turned up and said, and confirmed that he said to Mr Prasad, you're working on a starter motor, that doesn't count. Well, if that's true, I may not know a hell of a lot about a car, but I'm not a complete dummy. A starter motor is all electrical. And if Kurt Williams, if this is true, and he may have other evidence, okay, so I'll withhold final judgment on Mr Williams until I get the file from Immigration New Zealand. But if Mr Williams is basing the deportation liability notice on the fact that he believes a starter motor is just a low-level thing because Mr Williams is so brilliant as an electrician himself, auto electrician himself. That's wrong. It is completely, totally wrong. It is certainly not grounds to cancel his visa just because he's helping the boss adjust tyres. And it is also possible, as Mr Jitain has confirmed, that an electrical problem, what may seem to be an electrical problem, may well be caused by something by tyres, because everything on the car at some stage can interact with various things. And so what we're going to do, we've already asked Immigration New Zealand to provide us a copy of the evidence that Mr Williams says he has. We'll be very interested to see what that evidence is, and when it comes in, we'll bring it to you on another program. And we'll keep you posted as to what happens to Mr Prasad. So, Mr Prasad, Mr Jitain, look, thanks for agreeing to the interview. And from what I've seen so far, I can't imagine what grounds Mr Williams has. And so I think it's important to publicise this. Important for you because you're facing being removed to Fiji. It's important for Mr Jitain because Mr Jitain is faced with not having an auto electrician, which is going to cause him a lot of cost, a lot of anguish. But if Mr Williams has some sort of evidence that perhaps Mr Prasad is actually doing a chef's job at the back of the workshop, then I'd agree with Mr Williams. But if his evidence is solely on the basis that Mr Prasad worked on a starter motor or was helping the boss adjusting the wheels, then Mr Williams has no right to be a compliance immigration officer. And we'll see what happens in the future. Anyway, till next time, see you later.